Hello, Honors Algebra 1. So this is the last section you are doing in Algebra 1 this entire year, and I'm really, really disappointed I can't see you guys and be with you while we're doing it because it's actually a really fun one. It looks very intimidating, and I wanted to see your guys' faces, but it's actually a pretty easy one to do, but it makes you feel like real cool while you're doing it. So we are on the fourth method for solving our quadratic equations. We're going to use something called the quadratic formula. Before we do that, a little bit of review. Remember that this is the standard form of a quadratic equation. Please take a second and rewrite that down in your notes. This is called your standard form. Just get it in there real quick. And then let's do example 1. It wants us to rewrite this equation in standard form, and then they want us to identify what the A, the B, and the C are. Okay, so what we need to do to get it in standard form is, well, let's look back at it. It needs to equal 0, and then this side needs to be in this order, the x squared term, the regular x term, and then the constant. So on the right-hand side, I just need to get rid of these things. I need to move them over to the left. So I'll start with the minus 9. I'm going to add 9 to both sides. That leaves me with this guy. Now I'm going to get rid of this 5x, so I'm going to subtract 5x from both sides. Notice there is no plain x term over here, so it's not going to get combined with anything. It's going to be its own term, negative 5x. And on this side, we have 0. All right, sweet. We're done. We got it into standard form. I have the x squared term, the regular x term, then the constant. Now I need to identify A, B, and C. Okay, so A is whatever number comes first, right? The coefficient on the x squared. So in this case, my A is 3, positive 3. What's my B? Well, my B is whatever is on the middle term, but be careful, it's not 5, it's negative 5. So my B in this case is negative 5. And then what's my C? Well, that's my constant. It's plus 4, so it's positive 4. All right, so this is going to be an important skill today. So when we solve something using the quadratic formula, step 1 is essentially do what we just did. We need to make sure that our equation is in standard form. Step 2, do what we just did. Figure out what A, B, and C are. After you have those, what you're going to do is you're going to plug them into the formula. And this is the part where I want to see your guys' faces because the formula looks really crazy intimidating, but it's not, I promise. But this is what it looks like. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. You are going to get so sick of using this. You're going to memorize it for the rest of your lives, I promise. And then step 4, you're going to simplify. Okay, pause the video, make sure you get it copied down correctly, and then we will do example 1. So here's example 1. It says solve this using the quadratic formula. Step 1 said make sure it's in standard form. This is already in standard form, so that's done for us. Step 2 said identify what A, B, and C are. So I'm going to do that. Okay, so my A is 5, my B is negative 9, my C is positive 4. Okay, step 3 said plug those numbers into the formula. And to make our lives easier, I'm going to make our formula appear up here. And I just made those directions invisible to save us some space. So one thing that I want to point out that we haven't really talked about yet is there's this weird symbol, right? This plus or minus. What that means is that we have to do this twice. We have to do it one time with the plus, and then when we're done, that's going to give us one answer. Then we have to go back and we have to do it again with the minus, because remember, all of these have always had 2 solutions, right? So we're going to have to do this formula 2 different times. One time with the plus, one time with the minus. Okay, so I'm going to do it the first time up here, and then I'll get one answer, then I'll do it the second time down here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do it with the plus first. I'll do it with the minus second. So I'm going to plug each of these numbers in where A, B, and C are in this formula, and I'm just going to rewrite it down here. So my first number is negative B. Remember, B was already negative 9, so if I'm making it negative 9, that's going to become positive 9. Okay, now I have my plus, my square root, b squared, so that's going to be negative 9 squared. Notice that it went in parentheses here. You need those parentheses. Minus 4 times a times c. And then the bottom is 2 times a. Yay, we got all our numbers plugged in. All right, so now we need to simplify. So I'm going to go ahead and use my order of operations. I'll start with my exponents, and then I'll do my multiplication, all that fun stuff. So what I'm going to do on this first round is I'm going to change, well, I know negative 9 squared is going to be 81. I'm going to multiply this multiplication here, 4 times 5 times 4, and I'm going to do this multiplication as well. Okay, so the things that changed were negative 9 squared turned into 81. 4 times 5 times 4 is 80, and 2 times 5 is 10. Okay, now what I'm going to do is remember that this square root is really like parentheses. I have to do 81 minus 80 now. And that's 1, still over 10. Okay, now I can actually take my square root. What is the square root of 1? Well, that's just 1. So I get 9 plus 1 is 10, over 10. 10 divided by 10 is 1. Yay, we got our first solution. So that means that x equals 1 is our first solution. Now we get to do it all again, but instead of a plus, we're going to use a minus sign here in the formula. You didn't honestly think I was going to rewrite all of that, did you? All right, so the only thing that changed is that that plus sign turned into a minus sign. Everything else stays the same, so simplifying it is going to be pretty much the same thing. Okay, so this time I don't get an integer. 8 over 10 simplifies to 4 over 5. And we are going to leave our answers as fractions if we can. So, I need to make sure I say x equals 4 over 5. So we got two solutions, just like always before, x equals 1 and x equals 4/5. Then take a second to look back at all of your beautiful work and how hard and complicated and crazy it looks, but really you're just like multiplying and plugging numbers in. It's nothing crazy hard. It just looks really good when you're done. So example 2, what's different about this one? Well, example 2 is not written in standard form yet, right? We need to make sure that we get this side equal to 0. This side needs to be x squared, x constant. So if I subtract 105 from both sides, then this side will be 0. This side will have a negative 105 on it. Okay, so this is the equation that we're going to use then. And we're going to use our same old quadratic formula as before. Okay, so I just shifted the original equation over. We're going to use this one that we put in standard form, and we're still using this same formula. So we're going to have two different answers, one with a plus, one with a minus. Okay, take a second and identify your A, B, and C on your own. So they are positive 5 for A, negative 4 for B, and negative 105 for C. All right, so let's do this piece by piece. Let's do just the positive one first. So please, on your own, take a second and just plug the numbers in. Don't go ahead and simplify yet, but you can check your formula before you move on. All right, so that looks like this. So here's our numbers plugged in. Make sure that you have a positive 4 out front, right? Because it was negative. Double negative makes it a positive. Make sure you got your negative with your C. Make sure you have your parentheses around your squared here. Okay, let's go ahead and start simplifying this. Be very careful. Be very careful here because you're going to have subtracting a negative number here. So this is going to turn into addition. Okay, so I'm at that multiplication part. If I do 4 times, honestly, I just ignore this negative. 4 times 5 times 105, I get 2,100. But I know that these two negatives are going to turn into a plus. So it's going to be plus 2,100. All right, get out your calculator. Type in the square root of 2,116. You get 46. Running out of space up there, I'm going to move down here. I get 50 over 10, which equals 5. Yay, x equals 5. There's our first one. Now let's do the second one. So this plus is going to be a minus instead. Yes, I took the lazy way out again. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and simplify. Okay, on top, 4 minus 46 is negative 42 over 10. That simplifies to negative 21 over 5, and there's nothing else we can do. So we're just going to leave it negative 21 over 5. Oh, but we want to write x equals negative 21 over 5. Odds are, if you have a mistake anywhere, it's probably going to just be with your math, like the actual simplifying process. So double check, make sure that everything is plugged in exactly correctly. Check your negatives because there's a lot, it's hard to keep track. And make sure that when you're actually simplifying that, you're keeping track of your numbers right. Check against my work step by step. See if you can find your mistake if you have one. Example 3, this is our last one. What do we need to do first? Well, it's not in standard form yet. We need to get this side equal to 0. All right, here's our standard form. So we're ready to go. I moved the other one out of the way again. I'm going to identify my A, B, and C. Okie dokie, they are all positive this time. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start plugging my numbers in. I'm going to do the plus version first. Here's what it looks like with my numbers plugged in. This time, since B was 4, the first one, negative B, is now negative 4. The first things that I'm going to simplify are the 4 squared, which is 16. I'm going to do this multiplication, 4 times 6 times 7, and I'm going to do 2 times 6. So 16 minus 168 is negative 152. Okay, so at this point, we need to find the square root of negative 152. Hopefully you notice that this is not good, right? You can't take the square root of a negative number. So either this means we did something wrong or we've caused an error. And it turns out we did not do anything wrong at this point. Sometimes this will happen. Sometimes you're going to get a negative number underneath the square root. If that happens, you didn't necessarily mess up. That's just an indication that there is no solution to this one. So we've seen ones without solutions before, right? So just like on those other ones where we were trying to take a square root of a negative number, you can't do that. So no square roots of negatives. This is a no solution. So the awesome news is we don't need to do it the second time. If it doesn't work for the first one, it's not going to work for the second one. So this is a no solution. Okay, that's it for this section. Yeah, that's our last section ever. Yay, congratulations.